Have you ever found yourself standing in the kitchen just staring into the open refrigerator, like feeling the cold air blowing on your face, and you suddenly realize you are not even slightly hungry?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you pull out your phone intending to, quickly check a single work email, and 45 minutes later, you are completely engrossed in a video essay about the history of medieval turnip farming or something.
Right. You blink, you look at the clock, and you have absolutely no idea how you ended up there. It is this incredibly common, slightly unsettling feeling of being on total autopilot.
Like some invisible entity has just quietly reached over and taken the steering wheel of your life for a few miles.
Exactly. And we usually just laugh it off, right? We blame the algorithm or we say, I'm just tired. But if you actually pause and examine that moment, it's a profound mystery. Like, why do we routinely do things we never consciously decided to do?
Which is exactly what we're going to get into. Welcome to today's Deep Dive, where we are going to solve that exact mystery, because it really is the ultimate question of human behavior.
It is. And we have this tendency to view it as a distinctly modern crisis, don't we?
Oh, totally. We point to the constant barrage of push notifications, the infinite scroll of social media, just the sheer velocity of the 21st century. And we think, this is a new bug in the human operating system.
Yeah, the narrative is always that our attention spans are fundamentally broken and our willpower has just been, depleted by technology.
But the reality is actually far more fascinating. This precise vulnerability, this visceral feeling of being dragged along by unseen forces, of losing agency over our own movements and desires. This was being diagnosed, debated, and systematically solved thousands of years ago.
Which is the absolute core of our mission today. We are going to map out the ultimate, time-tested blueprint of the human experience.
And to do this, we're diving into an ancient philosophical text known as Jiva Yatra, which translates beautifully to the journey of the soul.
The journey of the soul. I love that. And specifically, we are going to unpack verse 3 of this text, which draws its foundational imagery from an even older, massive work called the Kathopanishad.
Right. And to help us decode this ancient map, we are leaning heavily on translated excerpts and transcripts of teachings by two highly revered scholars and sages. That's Swami Paramarthananda and Sri Nananda Bharati.
These are individuals who dedicated their entire lives to dissecting these exact texts, right? Just trying to figure out the mechanics of how we operate, why we suffer, and how we find clarity.
Exactly. And what we're going to uncover in their teachings is a brilliant, centuries-old analogy, one that explains the exact mechanics behind why you find yourself walking to that fridge or scrolling through that feed.
Yeah, and more importantly, it provides a highly specific step-by-step manual on how to reclaim the driver's seat. But to really grasp this blueprint, we first have to fundamentally rethink the nature of the journey we're actually on.
That is the necessary starting point. In the opening arguments of the text, the authors make a very sharp, uncompromising distinction between two entirely different types of movement in life.
Okay, let's lay those out.
So, the first type is something we are all familiar with. It's a holiday or a carefully conducted tour. Think about the dynamics of your last real vacation.
Oh, man. Let's say a road trip up the coast to the mountains. I spent weeks planning it.
Right. And on that road trip, you are the undisputed master of the journey. You decide the exact hour of departure. You select the final destination. You choose the scenic route versus the highway.
I am in total control.
Exactly. If you suddenly feel tired, you pull the car over and rest. If it starts raining and you get bored, you have the authority to simply turn the car around, cancel the hotel, and go back home.
Yeah, you possess total unmitigated autonomy. That is the definition of a voluntary journey. I dictate the itinerary, and the itinerary serves me.
But the text argues a rather sobering point. For the vast majority of us, our actual day-to-day existence does not resemble a holiday in the slightest.
No, definitely not.
Instead, we are caught in a current that the ancient texts refer to as samsara.
Okay, let's take our time and unpack that term. Because samsara is a word that gets thrown around a lot in pop spirituality, and it often loses its original, mechanical meaning.
It really does. In the strict context of the Jiva Yatra, samsara refers to an involuntary journey. It is the continuous, relentless, seemingly unstoppable movement of the jiva, the individual soul, or the traveler from one experience to the next.
From one situation to the next, largely without any real choice in the matter, so it is the exact opposite of autonomy.
Utterly. The text explicitly points out the foundational lack of control we start with. We did not choose the era we were born into. We didn't choose our parents, our genetic predispositions, or the geographic location of our birth.
We just arrive.
Right. And as we grow, We certainly do not choose the sudden, catastrophic obstacles that pop up in our lives, a health crisis, an economic downturn, and a sudden betrayal by a friend.
Yeah, if you encounter a massive life problem you cannot solve, maybe you turn to an astrologer, right? And they look at your chart and tell you, well, you are currently entering a 7.5-year cycle of Saturn, which brings hardship.
And you didn't ask for that.
I definitely did not RSVP for that. I didn't get an invitation in the mail asking if I wanted 7 years of hardship.
You didn't ask for it. You can't bypass it. And most crucially, you do not know where the switchboard is to turn it off. The text describes this state as moving round and round, dictated by external pressures and internal compulsions.
You are a captive traveler. You are simply being pushed along by the sheer momentum of existence.
Yeah.
If we put this in modern terms, it is like waking up on a high-speed moving train. You open your eyes, you look out the window, and the scenery is just blurring past at 100 miles an hour.
I love that analogy.
You didn't buy the ticket. You don't know who the conductor is. You don't know what the final station is, and you definitely do not have access to the emergency brake.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize samsara. You are on the train, and the train is moving whether you consent to it or not. But here's the silver lining, and this is a foundational pillar in the teachings of Swami Paramarthananda.
Okay, we need a silver lining right about now.
While the overarching journey itself might be involuntary, gaining a human form provides a unique, highly specific loophole.
A human loophole. I like the sound of that.
In the animal kingdom, according to this philosophical framework, there is absolutely no choice. An animal's journey is entirely dictated by instinct, biology, and environmental stimuli. They are purely passengers.
Right. A lion does not debate the ethical implications of hunting. It gets hungry and it hunts.
Exactly. But human beings possess a faculty called purushartha.
Which translates roughly to free will or self-effort.
Yes. Now, we have to be careful here. We do not have absolute godlike freedom to change the fact that we are on the train. The train is moving. The cycle of time is happening.
Right.
But we possess a localized freedom. We have the ability to regulate our movement and our reactions within that reality.
Sticking with the train analogy, I cannot stop the locomotive, but I can absolutely decide which car I want to sit in. I can choose whether I spend the journey staring out the window in silent appreciation, reading a book to educate myself, or starting a screaming match with the person sitting across from me in the dining car.
Yes. You can regulate your internal experience of the involuntary journey.
That is the crux of Purushartha.
And the text promises that if we intelligently conduct this journey, if we actively exercise our self-effort rather than defaulting to our instincts, we can rescue ourselves from that terrifying, helpless feeling of being a captive.
We can convert an involuntary situation into a navigated one.
Exactly. But to initiate that shift, we have to stop and ask ourselves a highly uncomfortable diagnostic question.
Lay it on us.
Think about your average Tuesday, from the moment you wake up to the moment your head hits the pillow. How much of your daily life is actually intentional travel? And how much is just you being dragged along by momentum? When you grab your phone the second you open your eyes, is that a conscious, intentional movement, or are you just a captive traveler on the train of habit?
Right. When you snap at your partner because you had a long day at work, who is choosing that reaction?
Exactly.
That is a mirror I am not sure I want to look into, because the honest answer is that a terrifying percentage of my day is pure momentum.
It is for most of us.
So if the goal is to shift from being captive passengers to intentional navigators, we need a technical understanding of the vehicle we are actually navigating. Which brings us to the absolute core of verse 3 of the Kathopanishad.
The chariot imagery.
Yes. This stands as one of the most enduring, structurally brilliant metaphors in the history of Eastern philosophy.
It really is. The ancient seers didn't just give vague platitudes. They essentially provided an anatomical breakdown of human existence, comparing the complete human apparatus to a horse-drawn chariot.
And to understand why we do what we do, we have to dissect 5 distinct components.
Yes. Let's break down the mechanics.
What is the first component of our vehicle?
Component number 1 is the rathin, which is also referred to as the jivatma. Translated, this is the master of the chariot, the traveler.
The true you.
Exactly. The conscious, silent observer sitting in the plush back seat of the chariot.
The VIP passenger. The one who the journey is ostensibly for.
Yes. The underlying consciousness that experiences life. But a passenger, by definition, cannot move through the physical world on their own. They require an enclosure.
Right, a physical form.
So component number 2 is the sayandana, or the dhem. This translates to the chariot itself. In human terms, this is the physical body.
Okay.
The body is the physical shell, the wood and the metal, that holds the master and carries them through the tactile world. Where the physical body goes, the observer is forced to go.
The structural integrity of the chariot matters, obviously, but a beautifully crafted wooden chariot sitting in a garage doesn't go anywhere.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't have an engine. It requires horsepower.
Quite literally in this metaphor. Component number 3 is the churigan, or the indriyani. These are the horses that are harnessed to the front of the chariot.
And what do these horses represent in our daily experience?
They are our 5 sense organs.
Mm-hmm.
The eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin.
You know, this specific detail completely changed my perspective when I was reviewing the source text. Usually when we talk about the senses, we treat them as passive receivers.
Here's the thing.
We think of the eyes as windows we just look out of, or the ears as microphones that just record sound. But the text explicitly states that the senses provide the pulling power. They are active, aggressive forces.
That distinction is paramount. The horses do not passively observe the world. They drag the chariot toward the world.
Drag is a strong word, but it feels accurate.
Pay attention to the language we use in moments of weakness. The text observes that when your tongue desires a certain flavor, it literally drags your entire physical body to the kitchen.
Yeah.
When your eyes crave stimulation, they drag your body to the television or the smartphone screen. The sense organs are wild, energetic, voracious entities that constantly seek out external engagement.
Wait, let me pause and challenge this premise for a second.
Oh, for it.
Because if the senses are these wild, aggressive horses that are constantly trying to drag my chariot into trouble, why don't I just lock them up? I mean, if I want to be a spiritual, peaceful person, shouldn't I just put blindfolds on the horses, move to a dark cave, take a vow of silence, eat flavorless gruel, and completely starve the senses so they can't pull me anywhere?
Right.
Isn't that the whole point of extreme asceticism?
It is a very logical conclusion, and it is exactly why so many people throughout history have tried extreme asceticism. But the scholars, pointing to the Kathopanishad, explain why that approach ultimately fails.
Okay, why?
You can take your physical body to a cave in the Himalayas. You can close your eyes and sit in silence. But you have only restrained the physical organs, not the psychic craving behind them.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you lock up a wild, untrained horse in a dark stall, it doesn't become peaceful. It becomes neurotic, and it kicks at the walls.
So you sit in the cave, and your mind simply projects fantasies of the food and the entertainment you left behind.
Exactly. The horses are still pulling. They're just pulling internally, tearing the chariot apart from the inside.
Because the problem isn't the environment. The problem is the relationship between the vehicle and the horses.
Precisely. You cannot navigate a journey if you cripple your own horsepower. The goal is mastery, not amputation. But to master them, we have to understand what the horses are actually running toward.
Which brings us to component number 4, the roads.
The text called these the gochara, the sensory world.
The world of objects, the environment around us. And the genius of this specific analogy is the mechanical limitation it places on the horses.
Yes, each horse has its own specific, highly exclusive track that it can run on.
The text categorizes these tracks as sabda, sparsa, rupa, rasa, and gandha, which translate to sound, touch, form, taste, and smell.
Just like a train is mechanically bound to a pair of steel rails, the eye horse can only travel on the road of form and color.
Right.
The ear horse can only travel on the road of sound. The eye has absolutely no capacity to hear a symphony, and the ear has no capacity to taste a strawberry.
So each sense organ is a specialized horse, completely locked onto its specific sensory highway, perpetually galloping toward whatever stimulates it most intensely on that specific road.
Yes.
Okay, if I look at the blueprint we have so far, I see a major design flaw.
What's up?
Well, I am the master, the jivatma, sitting all the way in the back seat. My physical body is the chariot. And my 5 senses are these wild, muscular horses desperately galloping down 5 completely different roads towards sugar and shiny screens and loud noises and soft beds.
Right.
Who is actually steering this operation? Because right now it sounds like the VIP in the back seat is just along for a violently bumpy, terrifying ride where the vehicle is constantly threatening to split into 5 pieces.
If that were the complete anatomy of a human being, it would be sheer chaos.
Yeah, we wouldn't survive a day.
We would be ripped apart by competing sensory stimuli within minutes of waking up.
Mm-hmm.
But you have deduced the missing links. The VIP in the back seat. Pure consciousness does not drive.
The master does not touch the machinery.
No, the master requires an employee.
We need a chauffeur.
We need component number 5, the sarathi or the booty. The intellect.
The intellect is the driver of the chariot.
The driver sits at the absolute front of the vehicle. And what is the non-negotiable requirement for anyone driving a vehicle?
They must know the destination.
And they must possess an accurate map of the terrain. The intellect is our faculty of reasoning, judgment, and long-term planning.
Okay, so if your intellect is confused about what the ultimate goal of life is, or if it has a faulty map of how to navigate daily challenges, the chariot is guaranteed to end up in a ditch.
Exactly. The intellect has to be sharp, educated, and awake.
That tracks. But here is my issue with the driver. I am people who possess a very sharp intellect.
Right.
I know I shouldn't eat the third slice of cake. My intellect has the map. It knows the destination is health. But the tongue horse is screaming for sugar.
Yes, it is.
The driver can be a genius, but if those horses are wild, the driver can't just politely ask them to stop. He needs a physical mechanism to impose his will.
And that is the final, most vulnerable component of the entire setup. The prograha, or the sita, the reins.
The reins.
In this philosophical framework, the reins represent the mind.
So we have a vital distinction here, because in modern English, we often use intellect and mind interchangeably.
We do, but the text separates them entirely. The intellect is the driver making the decisions, and the mind is the reins physically connecting the driver to the horses.
The text is incredibly precise about this, isn't it?
It is. The intellect reasons. The mind is the instrument of attention and emotional selection. It is the tether.
Right.
Swami Paramarthananda offers a phenomenal modern visualization for the function of the mind here. He describes the mind as the ultimate selector knob, or the internal traffic policeman.
Oh, I love this part. Walk us through the traffic cop analogy, because this is where the theory hits the pavement for our daily lives.
Picture yourself sitting in a bustling, crowded coffee shop on a Saturday morning. You are trying to read a dense, difficult book.
Okay, I'm there.
At that moment, all 5 of your sense organs, your horses, are wide open and functioning perfectly.
Right.
Your eyes are taking in the words on the page, but also the movement of the barista, the neon sign in the window, the sunlight reflecting off a passing car.
Yeah, the ear horse is active too.
Exactly. Your ears are hearing the hiss of the espresso machine, the jazz music on the speakers, the argument the couple next to you is having, the sirens outside.
And your nose smells roasted beans, spilled milk, and the perfume of the person who just walked by. It is a massive, relentless avalanche of raw data.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, if every single piece of that sensory data crashed into your conscious awareness with equal priority at the exact same millisecond, your system would overload.
You would experience total cognitive paralysis.
A massive traffic jam in your head. But that doesn't happen. Most of the time you manage to read the book. How?
Because I am selectively focusing my attention on the page.
Exactly. But how do you focus? Even though the physical eyes are seeing everything and the physical ears are recording everything, the mind, acting as the reins, steps in.
It acts as the filter.
It dictates which sensory input actually gets processed and handed over to the intellect. The mind turns the selector knob to book and turns the volume knob down on espresso machine and jazz music.
It acts as a traffic cop, putting up a stop sign for the auditory data so the visual data can pass through.
Precisely. Without the mind managing the tension, holding back 4 horses so 1 horse can walk forward, the chariot cannot move in a straight line.
So the reins manage the tension. If the intellect says we need to finish reading this chapter, the mind is the set of reins that pulls back hard on the ear horse that wants to eavesdrop on the couple arguing.
Yes.
And it loosens the slack on the eye horse to let it follow the text.
That is the perfect mechanical visualization. The driver commands, the reins execute, the horses comply.
If we pull that thread and connect this to the reality of our modern hyper-connected lives, this ancient blueprint explains everything about why we feel so exhausted.
Oh, it explains it perfectly.
The roads we travel on today are not just dirt paths with occasional fruit trees. They are meticulously paved with algorithmically targeted advertisements, infinite scrolling feeds, and constant push notifications.
Every single app on our phone, every billboard, every commercial is a shiny object explicitly engineered by thousands of smart people to act as the ultimate lure for our horses.
The environment we live in is a highly optimized trap designed to pull your horses in 1,000 different directions simultaneously. The roads are literally covered in bait.
So what happens at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday?
Our intellect is absolutely depleted after making decisions at work all day. Decision fatigue sets in. The driver basically falls asleep at the wheel. And our reins, our capacity for sustained attention, our minds, are completely frayed and loose from multitasking.
You were describing the anatomy of a chariot crash. When the driver is asleep and the reins are slack, the horses become the masters of the journey.
Which is terrifying.
And we must remember a crucial fact about the horses. They have no concept of a destination.
Right, they don't care where you end up.
The senses do not possess logic. They only know immediate stimulation. They only care about the road directly in front of their hooves.
So the eyes drag the chariot into 3 straight hours of a social media vortex. The tongue drags the chariot to the pantry for processed junk food.
Yep.
And the VIP master sitting in the back seat finally wakes up at midnight, stomach hurting, brain buzzing, wondering, how did I end up here? I didn't choose this.
You didn't choose it because your driver surrendered the reins. That is the feeling of being on autopilot. The horses took over.
Man, when you break it down like that, it's so clear. But okay, we've laid out all the parts. We have the passenger, the physical chariot, the sensory horses, the worldly roads, the intellectual driver, and the mental reins.
We have the whole vehicle.
But having all the parts for a vehicle sitting in a driveway doesn't mean you can safely drive across the country.
No, it doesn't. Having the components is merely the prerequisite. And this is where the jiva yatra transitions from theoretical philosophy to profound practical instruction.
Okay.
For the journey to actually be successful, the text lays out 3 strict, uncompromising conditions that the vehicle and its crew must meet.
Let's examine the maintenance manual. What is condition number 1?
Condition 1 is fitness. Total, holistic health. Think about taking a car on a massive cross-country road trip.
Right. You wouldn't attempt it with a cracked radiator, a slipping transmission, and 4 bald tires.
In the exact same way, your human vehicle must be fit. And the text makes it clear this does not just mean hitting the gym for physical health.
It's more than that.
It requires mental health for the mind, emotional regulation, and intellectual sharpness for the driver.
The text specifically mentions the concept of Samadhi Shatka Sampati, doesn't it?
It does. That Sanskrit phrase refers to the 6-fold wealth of inner disciplines. It is a rigorous fitness of all the subtle layers of our personality.
It's a comprehensive tune-up.
The ancient authors offer a very stern warning here. Do not attempt to start the ultimate spiritual journey in a hurry. Do not rush toward enlightenment if your vehicle is broken.
Take your time.
Take your time, sometimes years, to make your personality structurally sound first.
You have to fix the axle before you try to win the race. Okay, that brings us to condition 2.
Obedience. The instruments must be under the absolute control of the driver.
That makes sense mechanically.
It is a simple mechanical law. If the driver pulls the reins to the left, the horse must go left. If your intellect logically concludes, is 11 p.m., I have a major presentation tomorrow, it is time to sleep, the mind must immediately disengage the senses and the body must go to bed.
But instead, the body says, no, the cliffhanger on this show was too good, I demand another episode.
And the moment that happens, you have an obedience problem.
Yeah.
The horses are actively ignoring the reins and the driver is powerless.
Yeah.
Obedience means the lower faculties submit to the higher faculties.
Which is much easier said than done. What is the 3rd condition?
Coordination, integration, teamwork. And to explain this, the text offers what I consider one of its most beautiful and resonant illustrations.
I know this one.
It is commonly referred to as the orchestra analogy.
I love how this scales the concept out. Walk us through.
Imagine you are tasked with putting together the greatest symphony orchestra in human history. You spare no expense.
Okay, unlimited budget.
You travel the globe and hire the absolute best violinist on the planet. You recruit the most famous, historically significant cellist. You bring in a legendary flutist.
A dream team of musicians.
Every single musician sitting on that stage is a virtuoso, a verified genius in their individual field.
The raw talent on the stage is unmatched. It sounds like it should be the greatest concert ever played.
But imagine you put all these geniuses on the stage, and you intentionally give them no shared sheet music, and you remove the conductor.
Oh, no.
What actually happens when they start playing?
It is a complete disaster. The violinist is playing a frantic concerto, the cellist is playing a slow, mournful sonata, and the flutist is improvising jazz. It's not music. It's an incredibly expensive, chaotic racket.
Because it is integration that creates music, not just individual talent. Without a conductor, the intellect to coordinate their efforts, their individual brilliance actually becomes a liability. They clash.
That is such a powerful image.
The text points out that even the most highly tuned instruments are utterly useless without coordination. Swami Paramarthananda modernizes this concept brilliantly by bringing in a sports analogy.
Oh, right. He references a very famous historical cricket match.
The world team versus the Australian national team.
Yes, exactly. So the world team was a novelty concept where they selected the absolute best superstar players from various different countries to form an all-star squad.
On paper, statistically, they were an unstoppable juggernaut. Every single player was a giant of the game.
But they played against the Australian national team, and the Australian team defeated them. Why?
Because an all-star team is just a collection of egos who have never practiced together.
Precisely. The world team was a loose affiliation of individual superstars looking out for their own statistics. The Australian team, while perhaps having fewer individual geniuses, possessed elite coordination.
They moved as one.
They anticipated each other's movements. They functioned as a single integrated organism.
The lesson is clear. Individual greatness will never beat integrated teamwork. Your intellect, mind, and body must function like the Australian cricket team.
What I find so compelling is how the text anchors this need for integration in fascinating historical context. It brings in quotes from revered Tamil sages, specifically Thirumoolar and Bharatiyar, to hammer home the importance of the physical vehicle.
What is the significance of those specific poets for you?
Well, if you read a lot of esoteric or spiritual texts, there is often this toxic tendency to view the physical body as an enemy.
Oh, certainly.
There is this narrative that the body is a gross, impure, a prison of flesh, and to be truly spiritual, you have to ignore the body, starve it, and transcend it.
The ascetic extreme again.
Right. But Thirumoolar writes this incredibly beautiful poem that completely flips that script. He essentially says, I used to wander around thinking my physical body was just a decaying lump of flesh to be discarded.
Okay.
But then I looked deeper and I realized the ultimate divine truth resides entirely within this temple. So I stopped hating my body. I began to cherish it, to wash it, to nurture it, because I realized that by nurturing my body, I am preserving the vehicle of my soul.
It is a profound paradigm shift from self-loathing to self-reverence.
And Bharatiyar echoes it decades later. He says something to the effect of, if you strengthen the physical body, you stabilize the subtle life force. If you stabilize the life force, you master the mind.
It is a complete categorical refutation of hating the chariot.
You cannot possibly reach a divine destination if you are actively sabotaging and destroying your own vehicle. You have to maintain the wood and the wheels.
That is a vital correction to extreme spiritual dogma. Neglecting the physical body absolutely ruins the spiritual journey. However, analyzing this through a modern lens raises an incredibly important question.
Let's hear it.
Because today, in our culture, we don't have a problem with neglecting the body. We actually swing wildly to the exact opposite extreme.
Adim.
Think about the multi-billion-dollar global fitness and wellness industry.
Oh, sure.
We spend endless hours at the gym, we track our macros, we optimize our sleep with smart rings, we undergo cold plunges and infrared saunas.
We spend an exorbitant amount of time and money tuning the physical chariot to absolute aesthetic and mechanical perfection.
We want the chariot to look incredibly shiny and impressive while it's parked in the driveway. But look at what we are neglecting. We have built these magnificent, high-performance chariots, but we completely ignore the driver and the reins.
We possess peak physical health, but we suffer from a catastrophic lack of intellectual health and emotional coordination.
Exactly. The driver is utterly confused, constantly anxious, and has no idea what the actual purpose of life is.
And the mind is so fragmented by digital distraction that it is completely incapable of holding the reins of attention for more than 15 seconds without checking a screen.
So the modern tragedy is that you have a perfectly polished, carbon fiber chariot being violently dragged into a ditch by wild horses because the driver's having a panic attack in the front seat.
Wow, that is the exact diagnostic image of modern anxiety. We are radically over-indexing on the vehicle while completely ignoring the navigation system.
Which brings us inevitably to the most critical question of the entire deep dive.
Let's get to it.
We have identified the chariots, the horses, the reins, the driver. Let's say we do the work. We tune them, we coordinate them, we achieve integration.
We are sitting in the driver's seat, ready to go.
Where are we actually trying to go? What is the ultimate destination of the jiva yatra?
According to the text, the ultimate goal, the final terminal of human existence, is moksha.
Moksha, liberation.
Yes. It is also referred to in verse 4 as nityananda, which translates to eternal, unblemished, unconditional happiness. total freedom from a sense of lack.
And this is where verse 4 introduces a conceptual plot twist that, frankly, completely broke my brain when I was reading the source material.
It requires a total restructuring of how we view progress.
Because we have been relying on this travel analogy for the entire conversation, a chariot journeying down a physical road.
Right.
Now, in the real world, if I want to go to a destination, let's say I want to travel from New York to Los Angeles, that is a spatial distance. I have to put in the effort to physically cross 3,000 miles of land.
The destination is geographically separate from you.
Or if my destination is my retirement, that is a temporal distance. I have to travel across 20 years of time to reach that state.
Exactly. Every conventional journey we undertake requires crossing space or crossing time to attain something we do not currently have.
But the text drops a bomb here. It explicitly states that the journey to moksha, the journey to eternal happiness and completeness, is not a physical travel.
It is not a geographic place you go to after you die.
It is not a golden heaven sitting in the clouds. The distance between the traveler and the destination of total happiness is neither spatial nor temporal.
So we have to ask the logical question. If the distance keeping me from my destination is not space, and the distance is not time, what is the distance?
The text says the distance is purely ignorance.
Ignorance. Wow.
Yes, this is the core, earth-shattering revelation of the Upanishads. The journey is purely cognitive. It is a journey from ignorance to knowledge.
It is the ultimate aha moment. We are meticulously driving this incredibly complex chariot, desperately trying to coordinate the wild horses and the stressed-out driver to reach a place we have actually never left.
We've been there the whole time.
The absolute happiness and peace we are seeking is already our fundamental true nature. We just don't realize it because of an error in our perception.
And to properly illustrate how this cognitive error works, Swami Paramarthananda relies on a classic famous story from the Vedanta tradition, the story of the 10th man.
I know you were familiar with it, but let's lay it out for the listener because it perfectly encapsulates this twist.
It's brilliant in its simplicity. So 10 friends go on a journey together. They come to a fast-flowing, dangerous river that they have to swim across.
Sounds risky.
They all jump in, battle the current, and eventually drag themselves onto the opposite bank. The leader of the group, wanting to be responsible, decides to count everyone to make sure none are drowned in the crossing.
A good leader.
He lines them up and points his finger at them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He stops.
Oh, boy.
He counts 9 men. Panic sets in. He starts weeping. We lost a man to the river.
The others see him crying and they panic too. Let me count, another says. He lines them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He also counts 9.
Every single man takes a turn counting, and every single man only counts to 9. They were utterly devastated. They sit on the riverbank, mourning the tragic death of their lost friend.
Because every single person who does the counting makes the exact same fundamental error. They count the people in front of them, but they forget to count themselves.
Exactly. The 10th man is not lost at the bottom of the river. He has not been swept miles downstream.
The distance between the searcher and the lost 10th man is purely ignorance.
Finally, a wise traveler walks by on the road. He sees these 10 men weeping and asks what happened. They explain the tragedy.
The wise man looks at the group, instantly understands the mathematical error, and smiles. He tells the leader, stand up and count again.
The leader points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And right at that moment, the wise man takes the leader's hand, folds the finger back, and points it directly at the leader's own chest.
You are the 10th man.
Boom! The search is over in a microsecond.
The leader didn't have to swim back across the river. He didn't have to walk miles down the bank to find the 10th man. He literally just required a shift in knowledge.
The journey was entirely cognitive. The ancient teachers argue that our desperate search for eternal happiness, for moksha, is exactly like the tragedy of the 10th man.
We are frantically scanning the external world, counting the objects we acquire, looking for the source of joy, completely ignorant of the fact that we are the source of the happiness we are desperately looking for.
Well, this immediately triggers a massive glaring objection.
Oh, for sure.
If the absolute happiness is already inside me, if I fundamentally am happiness, why do I feel so miserable?
Why do I feel stressed and empty?
Why does it feel so undeniably true that the external world, the new gadgets, the promotion at work, the romantic relationships, the decadent food, why does it feel like they are the things injecting joy into my life?
It is the most natural, necessary question to ask. If I'm the sun, why do I feel cold?
If I am the source of joy, why does eating a perfect slice of pizza feel so incredibly good? Why does buying a luxury car feel so rewarding?
Right. And to answer this paradox, the text provides what is undoubtedly the most visceral, unforgettable, and somewhat brutal analogy in the entire scripture.
The dog and the dry bone.
Okay, I want to warn the listener to brace themselves because this analogy is stark. It does not pull any punches. It paints a vivid picture of our own delusion.
Picture a stray dog wandering the hot, dusty streets of a city. The dog is starving, ribs showing, desperate for any kind of sustenance. Digging through the dirt, it finds a bone.
But we must be very specific about the nature of this bone. It is not a fresh, meaty bone from a butcher.
No, it is an old, calcified, sun-baked, dry bone. There is absolutely no meat, no marrow, no nutrition, and no moisture left on it. It is bone dry.
But the dog's intellect is clouded by desperation, so it grabs the bone and starts chewing on it furiously.
Exactly. The dog bites down with all its jaw strength. And because the bone is old and dry, it shatters into sharp, jagged edges.
Those edges immediately cut into the soft tissue of the dog's gums and the roof of its mouth.
The dog begins to bleed profusely. As the dog continues to frantically chew, it naturally swallows the warm blood pooling in its mouth.
It is drinking its own blood.
Yes. But what is the dog's internal logic at that moment? The dog tastes the rich, warm blood and thinks, wow, this bone is absolutely delicious. This bone is providing me with so much flavor and vital nourishment. I must guard this bone with my life.
Oh, man, it is a brutal image.
It is meant to be brutal because it is designed to shatter our illusions. It is a perfect, flawless reflection of human psychological behavior.
The dog projects the source of the nourishment onto the external object, completely unaware that it is literally tasting its own essence.
What the ancient teachers are telling us is that we are that dog, and we do the exact same thing with the world every single day.
So let's translate the dog and the bone into a mundane reality. Let's say I really want a brand new, top-of-the-line smartphone.
Classic example.
I see an ad for it. I start obsessing over it. I watch hours of review videos. I feel this intense craving. According to the text, that craving is a state of mental agitation. The horses are pulling hard against the reins, creating friction and noise in my head.
Yes. Your mind is noisy with unfulfilled desire. You feel incomplete without the phone.
Then I finally save up the money and buy the phone. I walk out of the store, I sit in my car, I open the pristine box, and I peel off that little plastic screen protector.
Ah, that satisfying peel.
Right. And for a brief, shining moment, I feel incredible joy. I feel total peace. I feel complete. But what the text is arguing is that the phone, the silicon and glass, did not manufacture and inject peace into my brain.
The phone is just the dry bone.
Exactly. The phone itself contains 0 milligrams of inherent happiness.
What actually happened mechanically is that by acquiring the object of your desire, your craving temporarily stopped. The agitated, noisy mind suddenly became perfectly quiet because its demand was met.
The horses stopped pulling.
And in that rare, silent moment of a still mind, the natural, eternal joy that is already inside you reflects perfectly on the surface of your mind. You experience a flash of your own internal completeness.
But just like the bleeding dog, your logic is fundamentally flawed. You look at the glass rectangle in your hand and say, this gadget generated the happiness.
I am tasting my own internal joy, but I am crediting the dry bone.
Precisely. You misattribute the source of the peace. And because you credit the bone, what inevitably happens next?
Well, the quietness fades. The novelty wears off. The mind starts generating new desires. The horses start agitating again.
I get used to the phone, so now I need a new bone. I need a bigger television, a better car, a higher paying job, a more exciting relationship.
You spend your entire life just frantically running from dry bone to dry bone, making your mouth bleed with effort, desperately looking for something in the world that is actually already sitting inside me.
You become a victim of the hedonic treadmill. The text even uses another slightly gentler analogy to reinforce this exact same cognitive error.
Think of a baby that has just been weaned from its mother. The baby is craving milk, feeling the agitation of hunger. So what does the baby do? It puts its own thumb in its mouth and starts sucking furiously.
And obviously, biologically, there's absolutely no milk in a thumb.
Right. But the baby sucks on the thumb, swallows its own saliva, and seems perfectly content and pacified, completely convinced that the thumb is somehow providing the sustenance.
The spiritual teacher says the entire external world is that thumb.
The world has no inherent nityananda, no built-in eternal joy. We are constantly swallowing our own joy and giving all the credit to the world.
Okay, this is the crux of the entire blueprint. If we accept this premise, if we understand the mechanics of the chariot, we tune the instruments, and we realize the ultimate destination is simply recognizing our own internal nature.
How do we actually execute the journey?
Yes. How do we stop chewing the bone? Because just hearing the story of the dog once doesn't magically stop me from wanting to buy a new car tomorrow.
And the ancient texts agree with you. Knowing the theory is not the cure, because it is a deep-seated cognitive error, a lifetime of conditioned ignorance. The solution requires a rigorous spiritual education program.
It is not a quick fix.
Swami Paramarthananda heavily emphasizes that there's no crash course in enlightenment. You cannot attend a weekend retreat, do some breathing exercises, and permanently drop the bone.
Reclaiming your mind requires a commitment to 3 highly distinct sequential stages of practice: Shravanam, Mananam, and Nidhitasanam.
We need to spend serious time on this because this is the actual roadmap out of samsara. Let's break down the methodology.
Stage 1 is Shravanam.
Shravanam translates to consistent, systematic listening to the teachings from a qualified source. It is the gathering of data.
It is the phase where you analyze the texts, you learn the vocabulary, you understand the architecture of the chariot, the driver, and the true self.
It is the purely intellectual acquisition of spiritual knowledge.
So essentially, what the listener is doing right now by engaging with this deep dive, they are taking in the map. They are hearing the analogy of the 10th man.
Yes, Shravanam is the indispensable first step. But the tragedy is that most people stop here.
Oh, absolutely.
They read a book, they listen to a podcast, they say, wow, the dog and the bone analogy is so deep, and then they go right back to their lives.
Just hearing the truth does not rewrite your neural pathways.
To do that, you must move to stage 2.
Mananam.
Mananam.
Reflection.
This is the crucible. Mananam is where you use your own intellect to aggressively remove all doubts.
You do not just accept what the teacher said blindly. You question the teachings. You interrogate the data.
You sit down and think, is it really true that the world doesn't give me happiness? Let me test this hypothesis in my own life.
Did that promotion last year actually make me permanently happier? Or did I just revert to my baseline stress level after a month?
You play devil's advocate with your own beliefs. You chew on the concepts at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep.
Exactly. You turn the dog and the bone analogy over and over in your mind until the logic becomes utterly unshakable to you, until you can defend it against your own skepticism.
Mananam converts borrowed knowledge into personal conviction. But even conviction isn't the final stop.
Because I can be logically convinced that sugar is bad for me, but still eat a donut.
Precisely. Which brings us to the ultimate stage, Nidhitasanam.
The final frontier.
Nidhitasanam is the process of deep meditative assimilation. It is where the intellectual knowledge drops from the head down into the heart.
It is the transformation of a philosophical concept into a living, breathing reality.
In this stage, you don't just know you are the source of joy. You actually experience every moment of life from that specific vantage point. It is cognitive reprogramming.
What does that look like practically? How do you know you've reached Nidhitasanam?
You know you have reached it when the knowledge is available to you without effort during a crisis. If you get cut off in traffic, your initial reaction isn't rage, followed by a reminder to be peaceful.
The peace is just there.
The knowledge is assimilated into your reflexes. Swami Paramarthananda says something incredibly beautiful about this final stage.
What's that?
He says, Nidhitasanam is not a continuation of the painful, striving journey. The hard work of the journey is already over once you have the unshakable knowledge.
Because you realize you are already at the destination. You realize you are the 10th man.
Exactly. Nidhitasanam is simply the act of relishing the end of the journey. It is enjoying the homecoming.
It is sitting comfortably in the back seat of the chariot and realizing you don't need to anxiously whip the horses to run faster because you are already exactly where you need to be.
So what does this all mean for us right now as we close this out and prepare to step back into the chaos of our day?
Let's bring all these incredible pieces together and seamlessly recap this epic blueprint.
Let's trace the lines one last time.
We are the ultimate traveler, the jivatma, pure consciousness sitting in the passenger seat.
Our physical body is the complex chariot, the vehicle built to carry us through the terrain of the world.
Our intellect is the driver, tasked with holding the map and plotting the course. Our mind acts as the reins, the vital mechanism of selective attention that filters the sensory avalanche.
And our five senses are the wild, powerful horses, constantly being lured by the neon lights and sweet tastes of the sensory roads.
And our mandate, if we want to escape the involuntary momentum of samsara, is to ensure that vehicle is strictly maintained.
The body must be fit, the horses must be obedient to the reins, and all the diverse parts must function not as a chaotic noise of competing egos, but as a beautifully coordinated symphony orchestra.
Because if we do that, if we actively exercise our purushartha, our uniquely human free will, we cease to be captive passengers waking up in a panic on a runaway train.
We step into the light and become intentional, masterful navigators of our own existence.
Exactly. So the next time you feel that subtle creep of being out of control, the next time you find yourself mindlessly swiping through a feed for an hour, or walking to the fridge when your stomach is full,
Or lashing out at a coworker because the coffee shop was too loud.
I want you to stop and run a diagnostic check. Ask yourself, is my driver currently asleep at the wheel? Have I let the reins of my attention go slack? Are the wild horses of my senses currently dictating the direction of my life?
And in those moments of craving, remind yourself of the starving dog and the dry bone. Ask yourself honestly if the object you are desperately chasing is actually going to manufacture joy.
Or if it is merely going to temporarily exhaust your horses just long enough for you to taste your own inherent peace.
It is a profound, life-altering framework for reclaiming your agency in a world that profits off your distraction.
It truly is. It changes the architecture of how you view every desire. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Something to chew on during your own mananam phase that builds on the ultimate twist we discussed.
I love a lingering question.
We established that the ultimate destination, moksha, is not a place. It is simply the realization of your own true, complete nature.
The entirety of the spiritual journey is just the shedding of a cognitive error.
You aren't traveling across physical space or waiting out time. You are just waking up to the mathematical fact that you are already the 10th man. You are already home.
That is the truth of the Upanishads.
So if you are fundamentally already at the destination, and the anxiety of the journey was nothing but an illusion created by your own ignorance, then when you finally arrive at that profound realization, what happens to the chariot?
Oh, that's a deep one.
Does the physical body, the mind, the senses, do they just vanish into thin air? Do you abandon the vehicle entirely? Or, having realized you don't need to go anywhere to be happy, do you just finally get to sit back, let the intellect take the wheel with a smile, and for the absolute first time in your life, actually enjoy the ride?
That is a beautiful, profound question to sit with.
Until next time, keep your driver awake, hold tightly to those reins, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.